In this video, we are going to discuss regarding the ventricles of the brain. And in the ventricles of brain, like what is a ventricle? First of all, we need to understand the ventricle are the set of the four interconnected cavity. Like in the brain, like there is cavity, fluid filled cavity, and each all of the cavity are interconnected, and these are the four in number. So these are known as ventricles. So inside the brain there is like cavity, and that is known as ventricle. So this ventricle contain CSF, cerebro spinal fluid, and these ventricles are lined by epidermal cells, ependymal cells. So this is the regarding the ventricles. So these ventricles are communicate with each other by the with the like central canal of the spinal cord or other. Like when we look at the spinal cord, in the between there is a central canal, and that is flow. It's communicate. So now moving on the ventricles. There are four ventricles. How much ventricles? Four ventricle. So there is two lateral ventricle. Then there is one third ventricle, and the last one is fourth ventricle. So this lateral ventricle, like we have two hemisphere. These are the two hemisphere. In between them, these are known as lateral ventricle. And there is in between like the region of the dancephalon. So when we look at the region of the region of the dancephalon, in between the two hypothalamus, this is the hypothalamus. In between two hypothalamus, there is a third ventricle. This is third ventricle, and we move to below. Like we draw the another diagram. Like this is cerebrum, midbrain, pons, medulla, spinal cord, and here is the cerebrum. So in between, like this ventricle is known as fourth ventricle, and here is the third ventricle, and in nearby this there is a two both hemisphere there is a lateral ventricle. These are the lateral ventricle. This is third ventricle, and this is fourth ventricle. In fourth ventricle and in between the third ventricle there is aqueduct. So we will discuss furthermore in detail. So it is a rough diagram regarding where it's located. So when we look regarding the third ventricle, first I am just making it clear. Third ventricle. So this is a one-sided hypothalamus. This is the one side of a hypothalamus. In between both there is a cavity. This is a cavity, and this cavity, like this is a cavity. This cavity is known as third ventricle, and in both side here when we look there is the hypothalamus. This is the hypothalamus surrounding the. This is the hypothalamus. This is thalamus, and this is third ventricle. So it is the region where the third ventricle is located. So now moving on the first we need to discuss the fourth ventricle, lateral ventricle. So moving on the lateral ventricle, our topic is lateral ventricle. Lateral ventricle. So this lateral ventricle have like right and left portion, right and left. So when you look, it is the largest ventricle, and like it's present in the each each hemisphere, each cerebral hemisphere, each cerebral hemisphere. When you look its shape, so it's like a complex shape or C-shaped. Like it's have a lot of parts. Like when you look for the parts of the lateral ventricle, so it's have body, then it's have anterior part, anterior horn or frontal horn. There is posterior or occipital horn in occipital region. There is inferior or temporal horn. Like when you look body, it's the main central part, like main central part. Then when you look the anterior horn, it's extend to the frontal lobe, so it's also known as frontal, extend to the frontal lobe. Then another is the posterior, so it's extend to the backward into occipital, backward into occipital lobe. Then there is inferior, so it's downward into temporal, like when you look like in a 3D diagram, like just I am rough diagram making. So just imagine this is a hemisphere, okay, for the understanding or make it some clear. Like this is a hemisphere, okay, and like it is a right side hemisphere, and here is another one is I'm going to draw. This is the left side of the hemisphere, okay. This is two hemisphere. So in between, like we can draw like that way. Like this is the posterior region, this is the occipital region, this is inferior region, so this is temporal. Just imagine temporal, this view is the anterior, like this view is anterior, like this wall is anterior, in the anterior. So I am going to draw like when one is going to the, this is the posterior, this is going to the posterior, one is going to the inferior, and another one is coming in the anterior. So when it's draw as a 3D image, like it's in this way, okay, this is like in this way. So this part is When you look, this part is the body, this part is temporal lobe going to intertemporal. This is known as inferior horn, this is anterior horn, and this is posterior horn, and these both are connected, left and right. So when we look in this image that way, like this is going to the anterior, this is anterior, this is inferior, this is posterior, and this portion is the body. So we are clear now how it's oriented, and in between both there is presence of third ventricle, and this is the communicating, like when you look, these are the, here is the connecting portion. So this is known as foramen of Monro. So it's connected through the lateral ventricle to the third ventricle, lateral ventricle to the third ventricle through the interventricular foramen or foramen of Monro. So moving on, like going to draw another image. Like this is a 2 box, this is a one box, and here is the another box, left and right. So when we draw, this is another box, and in between there is a third ventricle. Like this is the third ventricle. So when we look in this ventricle, this is the third ventricle, and this is connected, like this is connected. This connection is known as foramen of Monro or intraventricular foramen. And after this third ventricle, there is a aqueduct coming down and is forming the fourth ventricle. This is the fourth ventricle. Hope now moving on the boundaries of this lateral ventricle. So when we discuss regarding the boundary of the lateral ventricle, mega topic, boundary of or border of boundary of the lateral ventricles. So when we look like their boundary, so first roof portion, there is roof, then there is floor, then there is medial wall, and there is lateral wall. But one thing I want to make clear, like this is the body of the lateral ventricle. For the body of the lateral ventricle, so the roof, body of the lateral ventricle, for the roof there is corpus callosum forming the roof. It is a type of white matter, and in the floor there is a caudate nucleus or caudate nucleus of the like a head part forming head part. When we look the medial wall, in the medial wall there is like septum pellucidum. It's a thin membrane that forming the medial wall. So when we look lateral wall, there is the head of caudate nucleus, and like adjacent white matter. That are forming the border of the lateral wall. So when we look in the image, this is the third ventricle and this is the lateral ventricles. So when we look in this image, or better to understand another way, okay, this is like when we look, there is the roof. In the roof there is corpus callosum. Roof, corpus callosum. When we look the floor, in the floor there is caudate nucleus, head part. And when we look the median lateral wall, so in the lateral wall, in this image, and we can clear now through this image. There is like anterior horn, this is anterior horn, this is posterior horn, this is cerebral duct, and here is the third ventricle. So moving on, and one thing is a point for the, like there is a foramen of Monro, it is like interventricular foramen, and it's connect to already we have discussed, like it's connect third ventricle to each lateral ventricle. Now moving on the third ventricle. In the third ventricle, so regarding this, it is present in the midline. Already we have almost discussed. It's a narrow slit light, narrow vertical slit. It is a narrow slit, vertical in between two half of the dancephalon, in between dancephalon, or two half of dancephalon, So when we look, it's shape. In the shape, it is narrow cavity in the midline. And when we look for the defined borders, so it's borders. I also draw the image. So there is anterior border, then posterior border, then there is roof and floor, and then lateral wall. There is no medial wall. So when we discuss anterior border, in the anterior border there is lamina terminalis, then there is anterior commissure, in the posterior there is a pineal gland and habenular commissure. Then when we look the roof, there is a roof like tela, choroidea, telachoroidea or car and choroid plexus. These are the forming the roof. And when we look at the floor, so in the floor there is a hypothalamus, and including the in the hypothalamus there is optic chiasma, and infundibulum also, of pituitary gland. And when we look at the lateral wall, so in the lateral wall there is a hypothalamus and thalamus, and hypothalamus. Now we can draw the image in the just draw. So when we look, this is the one side of the hypothalamus. Already I have mentioned some, and this is left side, this is the right side of hypothalamus. And when we look here is like a slit like, there is a cavity, a slit like cavity. This is a slit like cavity in between both thalamus, and after that when we look for the hypothalamus, so here is hypothalamus, this is hypothalamus, this is hypothalamus, So when we look as a border wise, like in the lateral side of both there is the thalamus and hypothalamus. Okay, when after that when we look at the medial side, so there is no medial portion. This is the in between, this is the when we divide it into half, in between two half, this is the left portion, this is the left, and this is the right portion, so and when we look at the roof, in the roof there is like choroid plexus. So here is the choroid plexus is situated, so it helps with the forming CSF. Now moving on, posterior wall. When there is the posterior, there is a pineal body, pineal gland, and then happen the commissures. So in the posterior side, and in the anterior there is a lamina terminalis and the anterior intercommissure fibers. These are, so when we look, like there is the communicate with the lateral ventricle with the foramen Monro. So this third ventricle is communicate with the, this is the lateral ventricle, so it's communicated with the foramen of Monro. This is the foramen of Monro, and when we look this, sorry, I have mentioned one thing wrong. This is not this is the hypothalamus. So here when we look this, this is the communicating foramen Monro, and when we go the downward, so I am going to draw, this is the aqueduct, this is like a tube, and when this is going downward, and this is the connection and aqueduct, and this is forming forming one diamond shaped ventricle. This is the fourth ventricle. Now moving on the fourth ventricle. So it's a diamond shaped. Now our topic is fourth ventricle. For moving on the fourth ventricle, it is a diamond shaped cavity between the. It is present between the pons and medulla anteriorly. Like this is located in the anterior. And when you look the posterior, there is a cerebellum. This is posterior portion. When you look, there is the extension of the cerebral duct to the, like this cerebral duct going inside the. This is spinal cord. Okay, in the spinal cord there is a cerebral central canal, and this cord pass through the whole spinal cord through this aqueduct. Now moving on the, like its border. So border or boundary. Borders. So when look the borders, there is a roof. When draw, like on another image, this is pons, medulla, cerebellum, and this is cerebellum. This is a spinal cord. So this is the fourth ventricle. Fourth ventricle. So this portion is the roof. This portion is the floor. This is floor, and this is forming the roof. This is a roof. And when you look in the side by, when you look its side, so there is superior and inferior. Cerebral peduncle. Cerebellar peduncles. These are forming the lateral wall. So there is the opening in the medial aperture. Like when you look the cerebellum, this fourth ventricle, there is a foramen of two opening, known as foramen of Magendie. It's present in the median aperture, and it's open into the cisterna magna, and there is another opening. This is a foramen of Lasca. Foramen of Lasca. This is a lateral aperture, paired lateral aperture. So it's open in the subarachnoid space. Arachnoid space open. Like when you look in this image, so in this image, this is the fourth ventricle. Look on the fourth ventricle, and here is the, like this is the cavity. Cavity of the fourth ventricle, and when you look, this is the posterior to the pons and medulla posterior region. So there is the fourth ventricle is formed. This is the lower and upper. So here in this region there is the superior cerebral peduncle. This is the inferior cerebral peduncle. Here is the inferior cerebral peduncle, and these are forming the lateral wall. Moving on this image, when you look at this image, this is the cavity, and when you look at the cavity, and this is the like cerebral hemisphere, and when you look, this is the choroid plexus, like roof of the fourth ventricle and the choroid plexus. This is the roof of chord. This is the roof of the fourth ventricle. This is the roof of fourth ventricle, and this is the choroid plexus. This helps the synthesis of the CSF and interior pons and medulla. So this posterior portion of the fourth ventricle is formed floor by this pons and medulla. So here is the cerebral. This is the cerebral peduncles, and in the branch there is like superior colliculus, after that inferior colliculus, and we already discussed this image. So there is a like foramina flusca, two foramina, and there is a one of like medially there is the one of the foramen magendae. This helps to the like this CFS pass through the subarachnoid space, and then it circulation occur. So this is all regarding. Now we can look in this image also. We can look also in this image, like this is lateral. Then this is the third ventricle. After that, when we go to the below, there is a fourth ventricle.